T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You're coming out hot with the guns already?
Happy 420. Merry 420.
Well, it's 420 while we film this. When they're watching this, it's going to be mid-May, but they're going to think this is funny.
Merry 420. That's wild.
Shit.
Welcome and happy day or evening or wherever you are watching this to another episode of the Midheaven Podcast. Because if you didn't know, maybe it's your first time watching right now.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is the Hades-Hermes combo representing the underworld and heaven, okay? She comes straight from the underworld. You know, we haven't said over here. And we coming through to just make the skies clear, okay?
I like that. Are you turning this into a rap? Do we have like a new intro song now?
Rap song coming soon.
Midheaven EP dropping soon.
Yes, with the hit
Can you imagine? Can I just like stand there with a fur coat on and like shake my ass and like shoot a money gun? Because that's the only reason why I would ever want to be in music video.
That's going to be in our hit single T-Square. Okay?
That's actually a really
that sounds
really
hard.
good name. That means like we're gonna come at you
MCT Square.
fucking your shit up since 1990.
DJ Third House on the ones and twos.
That's fucking hilarious. That's actually really funny. Can you imagine? I feel like if somebody really did do a serious rap album, I mean like some hard shit.
T-Square would be some
T-Square
hard
would be great, but like
shit.
T-Pain would probably show up and he'll have something to say, I'm sure.
This ain't a trying, everything ain't fine, I really gotta work hard.
I've learned more about rap since our podcast, I think, than I ever knew before, which is great because I hear about all like the rap controversy and you like break it down for me so I can comprehend it. So for that, I'm thankful.
No problem.
So this is an episode that we wanted to do in honor of Mother's Day. Because right around the time this is coming out, Mother's Day is either approaching, it's nearby. I don't know. I don't look at the calendar, obviously.
Happy Mother's Day
but
to
happy
all the
Mother's
mothers
Day
out there. I mean,
to
what's the proper term? The birth givers.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we can call it that.
That's the inclusive term.
So we wanted to, in honor of Mother's Day, talk a little bit about what your moon sign says about either your mothering style or what your moon sign says about your relationship with your mother, how your mother influenced you, just maybe through some signs, houses, aspects, maybe some synastry things that would relate to having a really great connection with your mom, and better understanding the relationship with your mother based off of the placements and some of the aspects in your natal chart. To better understand maybe like the karmic role that mother figures play in your life.
That's one of those things that if you are skeptical about astrology, that is like a super obvious point. Like if you just know this one thing and you know someone's moon sign, this can make someone a believer. You just start telling them how their mom treated them just based off that.
I think it teaches you a lot also just about how to relate to people. People want to talk about synastry, especially in relationships, and they want to talk about like, Venus and Mars and Pluto, which is great, but I think that in order to really have a great relationship and be able to understand somebody else and emotionally relate, you really have to look at the moon. You know? You have to look at the moon, Mercury, and Venus. Those would be the top three, but
you think you know someone
until you see their moon.
Until you see their moon, seriously, because their sun's how they present.
Unless your moon's in the 8th house and you don't have a pulse like Mike.
On Saturn too, so. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, because.
Yeah, what does that say about your relationship with your mom? Maybe we should like reflect on that. That'd be interesting.
Well, my relationship with my mom is the reason why I know moon sign astrology is like legit. And I like how it's personal, because everyone's relationship with their mom is like really personal, you know?
Yeah.
Or your nurturing influence.
Yeah.
So that, I'll explain to you how that works, right? In my position, or state, but I'm glad that we're doing it like this, because What I learned for sure is that the moon for a man is way different for a woman. Like it's the same but different in that, you know, I feel like the feminine or the essence of the moon is captured by the woman. Like,
well, in a man's
exemplary.
chart, also the moon can represent the mother and your wife.
It's the woman in your life.
Yeah, the women in your life in general.
Specifically your wife and your mom. Which now makes sense how they say the way you treat your mother is the way you treat your wife. Because it's really the way you treat your inner feminine, the moon.
Huh, I never really thought about it like that. That's really interesting. Well,
Totally.
I don't have a wife. So, I don't have a wife.
For the man, no. For the man, no. Yo, how do you not have a wife? That's crazy.
You know, it is 2022.
Oh, that's
happen.
What? You only have one husband? You don't have a wife for your husband?
That is enough.
Imagine you came home like, I have another wife. That would be wild.
That would be like meltdown in our house for sure. Yeah, I feel like there's like a lot of like
Scorpio.
Cancer. There's a lot of Cancer, Scorpio placements in our chart. So at
it just upset the balance.
I would definitely that heads would roll. But it's interesting though, because I saw like one of your posts recently where you were like saying like, oh, Venus may be ultimately what you're immediately attracted to, and that's, you know, maybe
like
what you find attractive, but
yeah.
Looking at the moon sign is actually going to tell you more about like the actual woman that you would settle down with if you're a man and you date women. And yeah, my husband's moon is on my Jupiter, so my moon is on his Jupiter, so that makes sense.
And what house is it in?
It's in his 8th house.
It's in his 8th house of Scorpio.
I'm daddy.
Wow. Oh my God! Stop.
I'm daddy.
Wow.
No, we both have moon Jupiter conjunctions, so
that kind of synastry is baffling to me too.
It's rare. You don't see a lot of that. Yeah, I think it's interesting though, because like just the archetypes of maybe not necessarily just your mother, but it could be like a surrogate mother or like a stand-in mother. You know, so I say surrogate because I have lots of surrogate moms in my life, but. Yeah, just like the women that you happen to live with or have around you. So that definitely paints a picture. So this isn't limited to just your relationship with your mom. I think when I think of the moon, I also just think of like that nurturing style.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, just from seeing like tons of charts, I always say like house trumps signs, meaning that houses and signs aren't equal. What's really going to take precedent, I think, the most is going to be the house that it's in.
Where it plays out,
And where it plays out. So what your nurturing style, how that comes out in your life, or where there's like the most action. Also, the moon is the fastest moving planet in the natal chart, so it's always fluctuating.
Yeah.
So it can be moody in nature. But that the house is going to tell you a lot about like, maybe perhaps you feel like you need nurturing or you give nurturing or how you might feel most nurtured. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, I'll use myself as an example. And it was the house specifically in relation to the rising and the sun that really blew my mind is how like, the mother specifically is attached to that. So one thing I learned too with readings is the moon, it really does answer all that, but you know, given with aspects and everything, thankfully it's not cookie cutter, right? Like, let's say the moon is...
Oh, no.
Right?
Not at all. Like, you could say you're an 8th house moon, but that's not the same as saying you're like a Scorpio moon.
A Scorpio moon, exactly.
You know, it's going to have those...
Or 2 Scorpio moons, right? Like, one mom can treat them totally negatively. The other mom can treat them totally positively.
Yeah, you want to look at aspects.
Right.
For sure, you want to look at aspects.
Just a disclaimer there, just so that you don't see this as, oh, moon and this means that. This is just more so the flavor of how
you can't really, and this is what separates like armchair astrology or like astrology that you would read about in like a magazine from like really understanding astrology, because not all charts are created equal. You can kind of talk about what a moon would function like in a house or what a sign would act like, but you have to really look at the aspects and you have to look at what house the moon rules in the chart as well.
And I'll use my sister for reference too, because I'll use both of my sisters for reference because now we all have the same mom, but we have different moon signs. You
have different relationships, with different children.
With different
obviously,
children,
you have favorites.
And it's reflected in the moon sign too.
Yeah, it definitely is for ridiculous.
Sure. So okay, my moon's in Cap, right? I'm a Taurus rising, it's Gemini sun. So the moon is 8th house to my sun, but it's in the 9th house. So as a moon in Capricorn, I've always felt like, in retrospect, not like I'm not allowed to cry, but I've never had a nurturing influence. Like, my mother was never the type of mom to be like, oh, let me hold you and let me touch you.
Yeah, it's not a
like,
cat mom thing.
no, like, she's actually always at work from day to night. Like, my memories growing up was seeing my mom leave in the morning and then come back at night and just like always working. Like, she was really more so the,
well, it's a Saturn sign.
It's very
It's a Saturn
Saturnian.
sign, yeah.
And Saturn's on my moon too. So the influence I got from my mom was a very traditional, strict influence. Like, I didn't know about like in grade school, people would tell me I need to go out more because like I didn't really.
But it was
know.
also pertaining. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're straight. No, that's perfect.
Like it also pertains to both the 8th and the 9th house when you think about it, because Placidus, it may be in the 8th house, but whole sign, your moon in Capricorn in the 9th conjunct Saturn makes me feel like your mom was very rigid with her cultural and religious beliefs, right? And she was all about like, putting a lot of emphasis toward that in higher education.
No, specific. Yeah. Well, see, this is where it gets even crazier because we know Saturn is all about like career, and so like especially coming into that, I would at a point, and that's really what I wanted to highlight too. Like, my mother is the direct influence for a lot of how I grew up traditionally Christian. Every week she would take us to church or we would do Sunday school. And like, she was the 9th house, moon Saturn. She was the 9th house teacher, really bringing up those like philosophies. Yeah. But as a Gemini, the 9th house was more like religious, but the 8th house brought a more occult element to it, where it's kind of learning the mysteries.
That's probably what like got you into it, is like reading scripture and stuff, and then. But kind of
she's like, Saturnian, right? So her thing was no occult. The occult is bad. And then get this, my entire college career was funded by my mom, up until the point of my Saturn return. In the 8th house, resources from other people, my mother, that not only bankrolled that, but I did also work for her, billing her insurance claims.
8th house.
So that's the Saturn dealing with other people's like insurance information. So that's what made me realize like, oh crap, like my mom is it's so real, you know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy. And then my other sisters, right, like with the Gemini moon, like as a Cancer, she never got that soothing connection with her too.
Capricorn 4th.
It was more Capricorn because she's Libra rising.
Oh, yeah.
So she couldn't leave the house because she was a woman.
Yeah.
Whereas I could be free.
It was really traditional.
And she would just talk to her a lot, right? But it wouldn't be like appealing to her emotions because my mom's an air sign. So, and then my other sister had the Sag moon and they beefed all the time. She was a Scorpio. They were always fighting. But she sided with my dad who was an Aries. So it was interesting.
Mars gang.
Yeah, Mars gang for real.
I don't know. I think there's like, and it's like weird, and I'm sure there are going to be people who like watch this because, Mother's Day for some people can be like a really sensitive subject, right? Because you got a lot of people that don't have great relationships with their mom. But like, my moon's in Aries. People always assume that I'm like an Aries or a Sag, and maybe that's just because my moon's in like a fire sign, but I'm all earth and water. Like all of my planets are either in Scorpio or Capricorn except for my moon. That's the only thing that I have that's in another sign and another element. So for me, like having that Aries moon was just very like independent, moving around. It's in my 7th, so I like to partner, but it's kind of materialized as like lots of like conflict with my mom because it's in my 7th house. And my moon also squares Chiron.
And all that Capricorn.
Yeah, so I have like Chiron and Ceres square my moon, and then on the other side I have, Uranus square my moon. So it's like my relationship with my mom has never really been good. It's always been like off and on, and from an early age we didn't get on well, and she was like in and out of my life. And I think one of the things that was so like liberating and like really helpful about astrology was like learning about my chart, and that the relationship dynamics that I had with my mom was like karmic. Like it wasn't that she didn't care, and it wasn't that I wasn't trying. It was just that had to kind of play out. It was like a very Saturn thing. But I also learned, because my moon trines my south node and sextiles my north node in Aquarius, I have had a handful of like surrogate mothers in my life. Like I have, 2 or 3 women in my life that are like really prominent. They're not my mom, but I talk to them like they're my mom, and one has been like a really strong support system for me, and I think that was like maybe the sextile to the North Node, and has been really helpful in just like being a mother figure. Came to my wedding. I have a mentor who's been in my life for like 10 years, and she's like my mom. So it's interesting because I definitely feel like I can see the harsh aspects to my moon and how that's played out with my birth mother.
Right.
But I have seen the positive aspects to my moon, and it's kind of like really highlighted the fact that like I still have mother figures that just come in a North Node way. So for those of you guys who do have like, you know, issues revolving around that, I think that it can be really helpful to take a look, and also seeing that maternal patterning, or really looking at any aspects that are really prominently tied to the 4th house, can show you like ancestral patterning and things that, you know, mothers or women in the family have a tendency to do, and it'll kind of show you patterns. So if it's something that's coming up that you're needing to work through, you're at least aware of it. And I've seen a lot of people do some like really amazing things, whether they go and do like family constellation work after getting a reading to like work through that stuff, or they end up like, you know, learning more about it, working through it, and then learning to like cope without their mother, or reaching out, making amends. I see like mom and daughters that come in for readings together and that will ask about each other. It's just really interesting. I think also being a parent on the other end of the spectrum, and like knowing that you have a child and being able to look at their chart and see what kind of a role you're going to play in your kid's life, right? And how that may kind of go down. I know a lot of people that are like, I don't want to know.
Right. It's
you know, like I know people that are like, the second their baby is born, they're casting the chart, which for me is kind of like nerve-wracking, because if I had like some 12th house Pluto shit, I'd be like, fuck.
Ah!
Like that's my biggest fear is like, don't put my moon in that baby's house. But yeah, I think it can be super, super helpful for people to have a better idea of what your relationship with your child may be like. And I see a lot of stuff in like astrology forums and things where people are like, oh my God, my daughter's moon's, you know, oppose this or square that. Like, is she gonna have a rough life? And it's like, I love talking to parents and basically being like, you have no control over this. Like, babies choose what babies choose.
She can have the best aspects and still have like the worst life.
Yeah.
Even if like things.
It's all what you make
easy.
of it.
Yeah. For real. And I mean, 7th house, Aries moon. Did you ever fight your mom? I knew it! Yes! I was like, you must describe. That's so lit. I was like, moon and Aries must be so wrong. That's lit.
There was definitely a lot of getting in people's faces, and that's an Aries thing, you know. Like that's very much an Aries thing, like right in your face.
Right. So would you say she influenced you to be like?
To like beat motherfuckers in the parking lot?
Kind of like just like raw, like to take shit from nobody.
I think my mom. I mean, the Aries moon, it's kind of immature, you know. It has this tendency to kind of bite off more than it can chew and just kind of like snap back. It's like a Doberman. Mm-hmm. Like it's gonna go toe to toe with somebody and like cause a problem, but it's really not like mature enough to handle it.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like no, I don't know. I don't really feel like I started anything personally.
I don't think so either.
No, I don't feel like I started anything personally. What was the question? What did you ask me again?
Have you ever like fought your mom?
Oh, you're still on that?
No, I thought that's what.
No. Nobody's. I've never like swung. No, I would never do that to my mom. But there's definitely been a lot of like getting in each other's face and kind of like the headbutting thing that Aries will definitely do.
Thing, right.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
But I mean, you know, it's like it takes a long time to kind of deal with that like temperament. Like a lot of my chart is like ruled by, you know, Pluto or Mars. So I think that it comes across in a way that it's like looking for confrontation, but really it's constantly going through confrontation as a matter of like dealing with emotional output. It needs to have like an outlet, so that way it's not like raising hell in general.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's interesting indeed.
So do you want to talk about maybe aspects that would indicate like a really important connection to the mother?
Well,
in a chart?
First thing that comes to mind is Jupiter trine to the moon or conjunctions.
Yeah.
Anything in excess could be like too bad, but I mean, such a flowing aspect. Your mother could really foster your talents and bring them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with harsh aspects, she could just be more like tough on you or something like that. But the thing with that question, personally, I'm coming to find like any aspects could be like that depending on.
Yeah, I think probably the ones that are going to be the most interesting is maybe like if you have some like moon north node synastry.
So I know a couple people who when Pluto transited their moon, they lost their mother
Really?
in Capricorn.
Wow.
Yeah.
But also Saturn could do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that person might have been coming into their like Saturn opposition, their second,
Oh, okay.
like after their next Saturn return. But yeah, I know it doesn't happen to everybody, but maybe I'm sure in its own way.
I think the Saturn transits are interesting, whether it's like a Saturn transit to the moon or opposed the moon. I've seen that in some cases where, like the themes of like becoming a mother can be more difficult and like require like much more, balance between like work-life stuff or making changes just in the family dynamic in general. But like the Saturn return, like I was saying, like when a client, goes through their Saturn return and then has a kid, and then you've got like that mother that's going through their Saturn return at the same time you are, that can be like really karmic too.
That can be, yeah. That's very true.
Yeah, like North Node aspects, Saturn aspects, Jupiter aspects. I see a lot of that. I've seen like a lot of like Moon Venus aspects also between moms and kids as well, especially because it's going to help kind of, I guess, aid like the nurturing style,
And there's always something you inherit too. But I would say we've kind of mentioned certain aspects and certain planets. We touched on the houses. What do you feel the nature of like the parenting style is based on the element the moon is in?
Well, I mean, obviously, fire, moon, moms, I think, like I connect fire to like the element of like life, right? Because it's about action and like warmth and like going places, learning things, like really developing some kind of like self-expression or like even creative energies. So I think fire moms in general are always like the moms that are going to be more active in like playing sports or maybe doing something related to like traveling or teaching or performance, like creative stuff, versus, the air moms who may have a tendency to...
You mean moms with fire sign moons?
Yeah, so people who have
gotcha.
the fire sign moon, that could be your mothering type, or it could be
Right.
how you were mothered. And
That's
then
real.
for air, I see that as like really like moms that are very communicative, right? Like they're not going to be like a water moon who's like super in tune with their kid and like can feel their kid's emotions or like doesn't need them to communicate. Like
they'll probably be telepathic with their kid,
Yeah.
but in a more mental sense.
Yeah, I just think like air moon mothers or mothering style is definitely like very communicative.
Detached.
Trying to, detach, but also wants them to get socially acclimated. So there can be some emphasis in like teaching them how to communicate from a very young age. So that way they go out there and they socialize and they learn how to like share and like relate to other people.
That's real.
What do you think about the other two elements?
I can vouch for the Earth Moon that's going to be more, it doesn't have to be strict, but it can definitely be rigid depending on the aspects, but it's definitely going to be a lot more grounded. I feel like the shadow of all elements plays through where fire could be smothering and overbearing or just raw, and then water can be a bit overbearing and over nurturing, and earth will be a bit controlling. And trying to maybe even or critical as well. Yeah. But, also really good with money. And then you did air and fire.
Yeah, you have earth and water.
So the water is going to be very psychic. But I noticed that water moons usually have like very tumultuous relationships with their mother that are either like really close or very manipulative and like jaded, unless there's moon in its dignity, right, which I feel like is different than moon in its fall and then moon in Pisces, but like, and you'll see this with different moon signs, but the moon in water in its healthy is going to be very
Cancer.
Right,
or Taurus, depending on how you look at it.
Exaltation too, those ones like in its healthy state, right, is going to be an actual. Well, actually, I feel like a lot of the tumultuous or dramatic ones is because of how pure the connection with one
or aspects too, because you can have a
well-placed for that nasty square. Or
you could have a square. But I think
like with Pluto.
What's interesting about like the water and the earth versus the air and fire is like off the bat, if you have an earth or a water moon, that's already going to be in a feminine sign.
Yeah.
So I think the moon is going to be much more comfortable in a sign like that in general, where it's used to kind of being more internal. It's not linear, right? Like air or fire. So.
And it's interesting. My younger sisters have air and fire moons, and now that I think about it, my mom's approach to them was way more masculine than with me, where she approaches me as like the man of the family, but in a much more like grounded, like I won't say, it's still very strict and like Saturnian.
Yeah.
But I can tell the difference, like where with the Sag and Gemini moon, she's more vocal and she's more like expressive.
Yeah.
Really
she probably appeals to you like on a more like psychological level too, right? Like she can
philosophical
definitely,
for sure. Psychological, philosophical,
Yeah, I think that, you know, the moon sign also, looking at it beyond just the natal chart, the progressed moon is something that's very interesting to look at as well, because you know,
the phases.
Your progressed moon is going to change signs about every 2 years or so. You can see, like he was saying, what phase the moon is in your progressed chart. The progressions are going to paint a picture of what's happening over, you know, a longer period of time. So this is how your moon is progressing and developing.
And now that you mention that, mine's in Pisces and it's 9th house to my sun, and we're meeting for Bible study every week, but it's a lot less rigid. It's a lot more Piscean, I guess.
My progressed moon recently moved into Cancer, so it had been in Gemini for the last like 2 years, and then a couple of months ago I was like, I feel like a fucking crazy person.
Are you like 2 degrees Cancer right now?
Yeah. No, it's 7.
Oh.
Yeah, it's 7. So
You're
it's actually conjunct my progressed Jupiter, and it's coming in conjunction with my natal Jupiter.
Congratulations.
Yeah, there's like some like really cool things happening right
That's
now.
awesome.
And that shift with the progressed moon from the 8th house into the 9th house, I started teaching. And also like the shift, you know, from being in an air sign to Cancer, I felt that was, definitely much more emotional.
Right.
But I think that can be cool, studying the phases, or like, you know, like if you're looking at transits that might indicate major changes with you as a mother or to your home or with your family, you can look at that. And I look at the progress chart a lot actually to like predict pregnancies. Like I can see like what moon phase they're in, if the moon is making a transit through the 5th house, or it's, you know, trining Jupiter, coming into conjunction with natal Venus, or, you know, coming into a full moon phase. Like there's a lot that you can see with that for people who are actually actively trying to like plan pregnancies as well.
Yeah. How do you feel like the moon sign influences the, what do you call it, ovulation phase?
I mean, that you would look at your lunar return chart for. You can track, I think, your lunar cycles, and like I think there is some correlation to your lunar phases. I also think
Are transits to the 5th house alluding to like fertility, or is it that like simple?
They can. I think like seeing a moon transit the progressed 5th house or the natal 5th house, seeing the progressed moon cross the ascendant is usually a pregnancy transit. Or like if, you know, progressed moon is coming into conjunction with Saturn or another planet in the 5th house. That can also be just talking about like a new lover coming in, or a creative project as well. So the idea of looking at the moon in those phases, it can also be about like creative births and projects and stuff like that. But usually like if a solar return moon falls in like a 5th house with an aspect to like Venus or Jupiter, or like a, you know, a benefic, I'll be like, oh yeah, there's likelihood of when. I think last year I had the number, it's like 64, 65. Like I predicted that many pregnancies last year.
Damn.
Yeah, so that's something I'm like really known for, is being able to tell people when they're gonna get pregnant. And also people come to me who want to like have designer pregnancies. Hold on, we'll pause for a second because that's gonna be really loud. But yeah, like basically like in the last year, it's been like somewhere between like 60 and 65 pregnancies that I have predicted. So that's like one of my favorite things. That are designer pregnancies.
Was one of them, huh?
Yeah, that Brittany's was one of them. I got my credit for that. I kept saying she was gonna get pregnant this year. But
this random dude ran up to me yesterday out of nowhere, and he asked for a cigarette, and I was smoking weed, and we just kind of talked. He's like, I'm bisexual, do you mind if it's at a problem? I was like, I don't really mind. And he was telling me about how, you know, he was with this dude and his baby mama was coming into town, and how like she got jealous and everything. But what he mentioned was his new child, I guess he mentioned something wild his new child did, and I was like, yeah, he said these pandemic babies, and what I didn't realize was that I think I don't know if it was him or someone else that said that, I think it was him that said like there's so many new babies being born that you can't even buy stuff at the stores, like you have to buy stuff like
people have been locked indoors for 2 years. What else are you going to do? You're going to procreate. I mean...
I didn't really, and then of course they're all collective. I didn't think there'd be such a surge of like that much more children. It's gonna be crazy, but
Mike has like baby fever. He's always like sending
no,
me.
I say that as terrifying. Like,
it's scary.
So many, like there's so many kids. Oh my gosh, this is
They're gonna have like those Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter. They're gonna be like these like hardcore like occultist wizard babies.
That all know how to like.
They're like 5
properly.
years old and making things like levitate in the house and stuff. Can you imagine?
They all know how to vote properly and like take over the house and set it.
Well, and they have Saturn square Uranus, so they're like fucking.
Yeah, Wall Street betters.
Break the mold. Yeah, it's cool when you like think about it that way though. You know, like that, and like I said, I have clients who also like want like designer pregnancies, so they'll literally be like, well, I have to have a C-section or I want to have a C-section. Like, can you tell me about
designer pregnancy?
Yeah, so I've had a couple of clients that'll ask me like, okay, you know, what would be a good day to give birth? And they'll talk to me about whether planets are making aspects and like ideal days where like moons are making positive aspects. It's kind of a taboo thing. Like not everybody will do that, but if a client asks me, I will. I remember I had one last year and she was like, well, I want, you know, my kid to have these things. And it was more like a good relationship with the parents and be able to travel and like all kinds of stuff. So we like designed this baby chart and she ended up being induced on the time I told her. And one thing I kept telling her, I said, you know, send me a photo after the baby's born because it was when Jupiter first entered into Pisces. And the moon and Venus, was it Venus? It was either the moon and Venus were conjunct each other. And I kept telling her, like, the baby's gonna have the prettiest eyes because of how we designed the chart. So like 5 months later, she sends me a photo and this baby has these big, beautiful blue eyes, dark hair, like the most gorgeous little like mermaid Pisces baby ever. Of course. And I kept telling her like, oh, people are gonna stop you on the street because your daughter's gonna be so beautiful. We put the conjunction on her midheaven. So yeah, so then she came back and she's like, now I want to design a brother. So we just got done doing that.
Future of astrology, y'all. It's
to some extent you don't have a lot of wiggle room though. I mean that's only for people who are like, I have to have a C-section or I want to, but
you can at least get a general area though.
You can at least plan properly and like wear a condom like during, you know, Virgo season. So we're not having any more Gemmy Gems.
Oh yeah. You know, comment down below if you want us to follow up on another episode and let me know what you think about this, because we broke down like the influence of the mom, but another side of it is for people who are having children and they see what sign their child's moon is. How does that mother approach parenting that child? Yeah,
we could definitely do an episode on that for sure. Yeah, we'll.
How can you maximize knowing what their moon is?
We can talk about it through the signs in the houses, maybe. That would be something good to do. Yeah, for sure.
And here's one more cheat code, okay? If your moon is in the first, second, or third house, then that means you should join membership 1, 2, or level 3, okay? Or it could be a derivative of that, 9th house, level 3, you know what I'm saying? So, or 12th house, level 3, divisible by 3. So that's how you know if is your moon in the 6th, you should join level 3. Is it in the 7th? You should probably join level 1. So, you know, there's a little astro science there with the moon. And yeah, thank you for joining us for yet another banger. All right. We'll
definitely come back and do another follow-up video because I think that's a good idea to be able to talk about the signs in the houses a little bit more.
And
for sure.
Please comment down below what moon is your moon, what's your mom's moon, and what's y'all relationship like. Let's have a conversation.
Let's see what's both of your moons. Let us know below. Thank you guys for your likes and your comments, your shares, and your memberships. We appreciate it. You keep the podcast going. Until next time, we'll see all of you guys very soon.
Peace.